Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. So last time for the mid-book analysis, we did a little coffee chat and little drawing session. And today we have a game show.
Ooh.
Woo! All right, let's introduce our contestants. Okay, starting with contestant number one, Miss Megan Martin. Applause for Miss Megan Martin. Megan is a music major at St. Cloud State. She has brown hair. She likes cats. She has one named Willie. She also
I love it.
she is also very wonderful and a constant supporter of me and my journey as I become a music educator as well.
Yeah.
Everyone give an applause to Megan.
Woo-hoo.
Woo!
And then over here we have contestant number 2, Jessica Stenberg, who is also a vocal music ed major at St. Cloud State University, and also has brown hair, also loves cats, and is also a great supporter of me and everything I do.
We might be the same person.
You'll never know. Oh my goodness.
Oh my word. Okay, so
Everyone,
we
welcome Jessica. Yay!
Yay! So let's begin. I'm gonna share my screen and I'll explain. So it's going to be a Jeopardy format. We have kind of topics that are discussed in the book that are sort of main themes. A lot of stories revolve around that. It's all from the book It Won't Be Easy by Tom Rademacher. And we are going to discuss, as we are two young pre-service teachers trying to figure out what teaching means to us and what we're going to do with it, how we are going to digest this book as a tool for our educational development. And so the format will be just like a normal Jeopardy with themes and topics. And then each of the, point valued questions will be situations or scenarios that occurred in the book that aligned with the topics. And then we will both put up our signs for whether we agree, disagree, or question. And then we will briefly explain why we feel that way. So that'll be the format. Sound good, Megan?
Sounds great.
Are you ready?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Here we go. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Megan, why don't you start and you choose what question you want to do first?
I would like anti-bias teaching for 100.
Okay, good choice. All right, so this one is the situation in the book where he is talking to the class, the author is talking to the class, and there's two girls who are both students of color, and he had said, like, don't act like an idiot, or like don't make those choices, don't make a stupid choice. And it got him in some hot water with not only the students, but also with administration. And then he had a really difficult conversation with the parents of these students, and kind of got in like a closer look into that. So in terms of that situation as a whole, how, and it can be the reaction, it can be the author's action, it can be your thoughts on the whole general situation. What do you feel? What is your answer?
I would say question.
Okay. Your explanation time starts now.
So I said question because I agree with um, the fact that he sat down and had the talk with the moms and kind of realized what he did wrong, but I disagree with the part of just overall calling students idiots and telling them, just telling them not to act like idiots. Definitely not a good time. But I did agree with the last part. So, what about you?
All right. I'm gonna say, hmm, I'm gonna say agree, because I think as a teacher, you're bound to make mistakes and you're bound to say things that you don't mean. And in this context, he said something that hit a cultural and really deep running racist thing, addressing like how hard students of color need to work against the negative stereotypes and images. And so even by saying that, as just a general thing that we would normally say, to people, um, maybe not even thinking about it, I think it poses reason for us to really think critically about what we say, and how we're saying it and who we're saying it to and what are the broader connotations of what we're saying. And I know, like, we will all make this mistake. We will,
Mm-hmm.
every single one of us will make this mistake. But
Yeah.
I 100% agree with the way that the students went to their parents, how the parents talked and advocated for their students, and children, and talked to him. And I also agree with the way that he handled it.
Yeah.
And it was hard, right, for him, because he was like, I'm just, what? I don't see why it's a big deal. But then to make that choice to be like, okay, I am wrong about that, even though it's something that's like you chew on and you defend yourself until the death on, to
Yeah.
say I'm wrong and I'm not going to proceed like that anymore is like the best move you could make. And
Yeah.
so for that reason, I say agree.
All right.
All right.
Heck yeah.
All right. I'm going to choose addressing the standards for 200.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop.
Teacher 2, focus standards. So I think this was on the scenario in the book where there was one teacher who was very strict about the standards and focused way too much on them, and then ended up kind of almost like her class kind of fell apart just because of how strictly she was focusing on the standards. And the other teacher sort of drifted away from the standards for a little bit and just taught the specific important things and focused on a few standards to touch base on instead of every single little tiny one. And I think that, yeah, so that's what that's about. I don't know who the teacher 2 was, but
Yeah, well, I think, okay, so when I think I typed teacher 1 is like standard obsessed, and then teacher 2 is like focused standards. Okay, so
okay.
here's my answer. In terms of the focused standard approach, I agree, because I think I was listening to, in one of the webinars I was listening to, it talks about like standards, power standards, where it's like it's a standard according to your subject area, but it also hits like it's has leverage, which means it like works and also touches on other concepts and things, and it's relevant to the now,
Mm.
and it's like complex and interdisciplinary in its nature. So like by using a standard that isn't necessarily like we do each of the standards and we approach them in the same way, it would be like, which standard hits almost all of them, and then how can I infuse nuances of other things while making it like the primary standard, you know what I mean? So it's like more of a hit, the lecturer had referred to it as a power standard, and I can't remember his name, otherwise I'd cite my source. But I definitely agree with not overwhelming students with information and things that are not going to be usable for them in their future. I definitely agree with the fact that learning revolves around usable information long term. So I think narrowing our information and the scope of what we give, and really, developing curiosity for our students so they can attach to these, the concepts and learn them really well, and hopefully transfer their long memory so it's usable long term, is the way to go. And I think that can happen because, we're only one person. I don't think that can happen if we chase the standards. I think that can lead to some ugly things. So I'm definitely team focused standards, power
Yeah.
standards on that one.
Okay. I would say, if I can get this figured out, I would agree with that. I definitely think that focused standards is the way to go, especially you pointed out like the remembering it longer and being able to relate what you've learned into your everyday life. I think that is why we're teaching students. And if we're teaching them random facts, they're just gonna forget. And if we're overwhelming them, they're just gonna forget. Like, I definitely don't remember a lot of the things that I learned that didn't relate to like real life.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely say agree for the focus standards.
Okay. Well, thank you for your answer.
Woohoo!
I don't really know what's going on here. Points for both. Oh,
There we
I
go.
see. It goes dark. Okay, hold
Yes.
on. Let me just. Okay,
Yay.
now I know what I'm doing. All right, it is your turn to choose.
Well, since we're on this topic, I would like addressing standards for 100.
Okay. All right, this is the other side of the coin. So this is the teacher who chased the standards, and it kind of got really ugly for her. It exhausted her, it drained her, it overwhelmed her students. But it looked really good in the faculty meeting for her to say that she was doing all those things, but it was not good for, a little dog, but it was not good for the actual learning of the students. I think was she a math teacher? I can't remember.
I think it was history, maybe.
Oh, okay. But it became kind of a really bad situation for her and her students. So, what say you, Megan Martin?
I say disagree.
Explain yourself.
I feel like that would probably be me as a first year teacher, is like trying to impress the administration. But like now that I've learned that, like, honestly, in the long run, that doesn't really matter. Like, to hit all of the standards, like, it's gonna drain you, as we heard from the book, and it's gonna drain the students, and no one's gonna have a good time. So like,
Right.
what's the point? So I definitely would disagree with teacher one.
All right. All right. My answer is also disagree. And for the same reasons why you said disagree, and I will add one more reason. I think the social and emotional learning of students is equally as important as the information that they learn that's from the content area. And I think overwhelming students, or by chasing standards or putting too much information, and that can really stress out and string out your students where they get academically exhausted. And I don't think that's where good learning lives. I think good learning lives in environments where people want to learn and want to achieve. And you can only cultivate, it's a very delicate thing to cultivate. And something that, I would argue I mean, what's the secret to cultivating that? I
Yeah.
don't think this is a helpful thing for that.
Mm-mm.
I think this is really destructive for that. So I disagree with teacher one and these standard obsessive ways
Yeah.
of that approach.
Yes.
All right. Okay, I'm going to do student teaching relationships for a 300. Okay. Okay,
Granola bar
explain.
girl. Wow. Okay. So this was the situation where oh yes, in the book where the student would go to his room for a granola
Mhm.
bar, wasn't it? Yeah, and she kind of shared a lot with him um and kind of like gave her I don't know, probably saw him as like a figure to what's the word? Like look up to.
A support figure and
Yeah,
yeah. Mhm.
yes, and a support figure. Um yeah, and I think this was the one where she was going to self-harm and
Mhm.
then gave him the razors and uh yeah, I think that was that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
That
So
is
how
that
did you
one.
feel about that situation?
Okay. Um so from the teacher perspective, I'm going to do I agree. Um I just re-listened to this. Um and there are multiple reasons why I agree with his approach. He made a space where someone felt welcome, and she comes to him and just asks if she can talk to him. And
Mm,
he says yes. He makes time, he makes space, and he didn't try to change the situation. And he wasn't trying to be her therapist, he was trying to be her English teacher. And I think that
mm,
is the thing. You don't have to be the therapist for everybody, but you should be a listener. You should be a listener and you should be a supporter. And again, it all goes back to social and emotional learning, right? Um, how much are you going to learn in school if you're dealing with things that are causing you to question your worth or your
mm,
life? How are you going to even be open to learning anything? That it's completely
yeah.
irrelevant at that point. So to be the relevant teacher is to be the listener, and to every single time she had a open spot, that she would, it would come to a natural, like, like little end to the conversation or pause, he would just offer her a granola bar. And like that, even that offering of a physical substantial thing, something food oriented, something comforting, is like a provision.
Yeah.
And he had also mentioned like coloring. So like
Oh, yeah.
he can have people come in, and again, young adult with people come in and have an expressive creative outlet
Mm,
to kind of process. And what I like about this is that he like doesn't even, he's like, I don't even do really anything except for just listen. And like that is really the key. When she drops the razor blades in his hand, um, the fact that she knew that she was going to be supported, and that he continually connected her with people in the school who could help her and support her in other ways that he
yeah.
couldn't. He recognized his limits. I think that's
Hmm.
also a big part of it.
Oh, yeah.
And then at the end of the day, to have someone say, I'm alive because of you,
Mm,
is a big, big deal. And the fact that he wasn't draining himself over it, but rather just being a human, listening
yeah.
to a human, and providing for a human in a really practical way is How else that's the perfect way to do it. So I
Good.
agree with the granola bar girl situation and
Ah,
how the author approached that.
mm. I would say agree too. I think that you made some really good points there. And I love that he just sat there and knew that that this girl needed was just someone to listen to them and to hear what they're saying and to validate that what they're feeling is okay and what they're going through is normal. And so just, I don't know if you can hear that, but my chickens are clucking outside the window. And
I
I'm
can
trying
hear it.
really hard not to laugh, but they're really loud. Oh no.
Screaming
But yes.
chickens.
Okay. Yes, I agree. And I think that I'm guessing that he made a big impact on granola bar girl's life. And I think that, well, I was thinking when you were talking, like how if there was ever silence, like he would offer a granola bar. And like I was thinking about how we used to have snack time in elementary school. And then like some teachers would have like snacks in their cupboard, like fruit snacks or like whatever for the week if you didn't bring one. And like I was thinking about how I definitely want to have like a stash of snacks somewhere just for like this kind of situation if it were to
Yeah.
come up. And I just, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So
No, that's definitely something, that's a really good takeaway, you know? That
yeah.
is something practically that we can do in hopes to provide for our students, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, I'm doing a really bad job at,
Goodness.
okay, oh, my word. All right, I think it's your turn.
Okay. I would like assessments and grading for 400.
Whoop, it's a
Boop,
big
boop, boop.
one. Okay, so this is towards the end of the book. He's talking about how he had a final exam in his class, and he was working. There was two articles that they were being tested on, and one article had an equitable approach and message, and the other one was like super racist and super bad. And he had presented these articles as a part of their final exam for them to analyze. I don't think he goes into detail about that, but he definitely. And then this girl is like, oh no, this
Oh
is
yeah,
not it.
didn't you like say something awful on Twitter, like came after him?
Well,
Something along.
no, the students like banded together and
Yeah.
like attacked the author on Twitter and was like trying to get them to talk about their thing. But they so they kind of banded together, and like within a few minutes they had all just dropped doing their final exam and were like all focused on this like all out Twitter war with this author who had said these
Oh
terrible
no.
things. And so the thing is, in terms of assessments and grading, he just let it go. He was like, they're doing the thing, they're advocating, they're doing the thing. Um, what are your thoughts on that situation as terms of an assessment or grading, or what would maybe you do, or would you do something different, or how
Huh.
questionable is that for you?
I would agree. Because I think because he's an English teacher, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it was almost part of the final exam. I mean, not to like, attack people on Twitter, but like just that they were standing up for other
Mm-hmm.
people and standing up for themselves and like banding together and acting as a community. I think that that right there is exactly what we want to teach our students, is just how to work
Right.
together to change the world and
Mm-hmm.
make it better for everyone.
Yeah.
So I would say I agree with the decision that he made to just say whatever, final exam.
Who
Because
is she?
I think at first I would be really shocked, and I would be like,
Yeah.
oh, no one did the final exam, what the heck. But I would agree in the end.
Right. Yeah.
What did you?
Um, okay, I'm gonna say agree. I do agree. Because in the long run, what he's teaching these students are notice the thing that is the ugly bad thing, and then fight for the thing that is the good thing.
Yes.
Advocate for yourself, advocate for others, defend those things. There's like in terms of like being like on the anti-bias continuum, there's like multiple stages that you can be at. One is like you're actively like you're like oppressing someone like actively with your actions, and then it ranges to like you notice that it's like you don't notice that what you're saying is bad or maybe offensive, then it's like
Mm.
you do notice it but you don't speak out against it. Then it's like you do notice it and you try to speak out against it, but like you don't really have any reasoning. Then it's like you educate yourself on it, and then so like you're in the educational stage where you're learning more about it and being able to identify it better, and then being able
Mm.
to have the things to say to combat it. And then there's like being actively anti-racist where you or anti-bias where you see situations like that and then you speak into them, and like it doesn't need to be in a confrontational way at all. Actually, it's better if it's not, but you state this is why that is incorrect and this is why this is perpetuating this
Mm.
negative thing. And then there are like intentionally being anti-biased where you are teaching people and educating others about why. So I think in terms of teaching your class to be anti-biased, right?
Mm.
On the spectrum, to have a student be able to say, nope, and then
Yes.
for all the other students to say, yep, that's wrong too. Okay, what are we gonna do? We got to
Yes.
do something. That is like the thing, and for long
Mm-hmm.
term, that is it, right? You're teaching
Yes.
students how to advocate. You're teaching students how to take action, and be intentionally anti-biased. And so
Mm.
I don't know if that was like part of the exam where he was like trying to get people to like step up. I don't think so. And I know it was only one class who had done it, one class that was like, everyone else just took the exam. So in terms of like how to grade that, that's a little questionable.
Mm. True.
And so that's why I was like, I was on the fence about agree or question. But again, usable information that is relevant for students. That
Mm.
experience was relevant for students.
Yes.
So I 100% agree with that move.
Yes. Love
All
that.
right. Is it my
Okay.
turn? Okay.
Yes. You select one.
Okay. I'm going to do student teaching. No. Yep. Student slash teacher relationships for 200.
Right.
Oh, okay. This is referring
Ooh.
to the student. Oh, no. Sorry. You explain.
This is referring to the student who was dating a guy that her parents did not know about. And I think he was abusive and just not a great boyfriend. And right, like he
Mm,
was really harmful and
I don't remember that
something
part.
along those lines.
Mm-mm.
I'm guessing that like that could be the reason why, but okay. Anyways, but yes. So then the teacher found out about this and had to tell the parents, even though he was close with this student, which is why they opened up to him and
Mm-hmm.
felt safe to tell him. And then he sort of felt really bad because he had to tell the parents and he was kind of struggling whether he should tell them and follow the rules and follow the protocol that teachers need to follow, or whether he should make the decision based on his feelings and his friendship or relationship with this student when it possibly could harm her. I guess we don't really know if that was the case. But yeah, so what did you think about Tom's actions?
I hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Did your AirPods die?
Yes, they did.
Oh.
No, what a shame. Okay. So I agree with Tom's actions. And here's why. It sounds really bad, but you are not trying to be friends to your students. You're not trying to do that. You are trying to be a professional adult who is acting in loco parentis with your students, which means you can be friendly and which means you can cultivate lasting, lovely relationships with them that are encouraging and supportive. But at the core of it, you are acting as if you are in the parent's role. And it is very important that there is a line, and that because you're a mandated reporter, that you are able to do that. And I know that was really hard because he's thinking, okay, the student is amazing, and she's just wonderful, and she's an excellent part of my class, and she's like eating lunch in my room with her friends, and he enjoys her company and enjoys her as a young person and in his class, and obviously he knows it's going to damage their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But I think actions, they were correct because of his professional obligations. And she did come around later, and she did, was able to, have a better relationship with him later. And I can understand that, trying to be sensitive to someone's emotions. But at the end of the day, it is not about, that. It is about safety, and it is about health and well-being. And I think that is the bottom line. So that's kind of a sad answer, because it's like, no, don't be friendly. But no, be friendly and warm and welcoming, and learn things. But also, you do have to hold up your end of the bargain and be a reporter and make those hard choices. And I think that's hard about what's being a teacher, is doing that with students, and also, that's hard about being a parent. That's always difficult. Right? So I think his actions were correct. I agree.
I would have to agree as well. I would agree for like the same reasons as you. I think, didn't the student say something like, oh yeah, it was like, if you like tell my parents, like I'm never gonna talk to you again, or I'm never gonna and but honestly, I think in those situations we do need to realize that most students will realize at some point in their lives or in their future that it was good and it was the right thing for us to tell their parents, or for Tom to tell her parents. And I mean, we have to, as like that's our job. So yeah, I would say I agree with how Tom reacted to that situation.
All right. Thanks for your explanation.
Yes.
Right, it is your turn to choose.
Oh, we haven't done any professionalism in teaching yet. Let's go for 300.
Oh my word. Okay. So this is the weed incident.
The weed
incident where he's at the play, and he has to take the backpacks because they can't have the backpacks in the auditorium, and he smells the smell of weed, of which he does his professional obligation to report it and he's like, I'm about to discover some weed, and he takes it to I think it was the vice principal. And then the things that happened after this incident spiraled into something much greater, arguably, than what was merited. And I think it speaks a lot about the school and the administration and the police and the choices that they made. But him as a teacher has a lot of regrets about that situation and starts to question was that the correct choice? It was the professional choice, but was it the correct choice? And so that is that incident. What say you?
Oh, I would say I have to agree with Tom's decision there. I think that it was smart of him to report it and turn it in. But then on the other hand, I was thinking about putting question because I don't really know if he should be going through this student's bag, and I don't really, oh yeah, but that would be really difficult. But overall, I would agree that he did the right thing reporting it. But I would say that the administration and the higher up people might have messed up a bit by really making it a huge deal, and getting, was it the student in trouble or his parents or
Yeah.
something along those lines? Yeah. And so I think Tom did the right thing, and he couldn't help he couldn't help, and he didn't know how the administration was going to react to it, but he did the right thing. So he couldn't help that they did not really do the right thing. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. I get that. I question this situation because there are a lot of questionable things going on. And the thing that gets me is when he says, he did do the right thing. He did what he was professionally obligated to do. However, what everybody else did not help the student learn, did not preserve the student's dignity, and was just overall completely destructive for the student, and undermined them and who they were. The fact that they couldn't do graduation, the fact that they had to immediately stop, the fact that the police got involved, the fact that it was blown out of proportion, that's not great. And I think, maybe had he taken the student aside and said, blah, 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 and explained why it was wrong and explained why, maybe some other decisions would be better for him academically and also as a whole person, I think that should have also occurred in relation. I think you're supposed to report it and then also have that conversation. But I think that conversation didn't happen because of the order of operations and when he turned it over to the administration and they did those things. And so I've actually been thinking a lot about this on my voice thread. When I had discussed this question, I had said, I agree with his actions, and I do still agree with his actions. But the entire situation in terms of, is questionable. If you are in a place in a school where the administration is going to make those types of decisions, like, what does that say?
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of a big thing. And so that's really hard. And the whole thing is really questionable for me because I know I would be thinking that exact same thing. Did I do the wrong thing? Did I not say that thing? Did I have done this other thing? But I think the goal is the students. The goal is the students learning, and not just information about topics learning, but like learning about themselves and who they are. And I think having the conversation is the most important thing that should have occurred. And I don't think it occurred.
Yeah.
And I think it was focused on discipline and punishment and keeping in line and following the rules
Mm.
rather than actually talking to the student. And so
Yeah.
for that reason, you know, that brings up a lot of questions for me and a lot of like, but I do know he did follow his professional obligation, and for that I do agree. But I don't agree with
Mm-hmm.
the other professionals and adults involved and what they chose to do because it wasn't student-centered.
Yeah.
All right. I think
Yeah.
my turn to choose and your turn to explain.
Okay.
I'm going
What
to
are we gonna-
choose. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I just said, what are we going to choose?
So I'm going to choose anti-bias teaching for 300.
Yay.
Okay, do I need to explain this one? Because I really summarized it poorly.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, which one?
This is the teacher that was across the hall from him who led that discussion, and he was trying to talk about, you know, transgender and homophobia, you know, and like all those things, but for the sake of like allowing multiple perspectives in the class discussion, he just sort of enabled people who had oppressive like and mentalities and those things to speak up and be really loud, and therefore it silenced the people who were,
Yeah.
and then they had to this whole like healing session. So sorry, I know that throws off our pattern, but
Do you agree or disagree? I guess for which teacher? I don't know, you pick.
yeah, okay, so this is what I'm gonna say. I'm going to say question because I have a lot of things.
Yeah.
I disagree with that teacher. I agree with how he addressed it. He talked about it. He talked about it head on. It was healing that occurred, and you have to talk about those types of wounds, right? However, I know that this idea of like, everyone needs to have a voice and everyone needs to speak, right? People are going to say the wrong thing, right?
Yes.
And then also people are going to be offended by that thing. 100%. I know there's another situation where there's a female who responded really poorly to a comment that someone had said, and he didn't address it head on as it was happening, and he just sort of let it happen. And she was like, I never thought this would happen in your class. I never thought you'd be that teacher. And so I think that idea of, for the sake of having multiple perspectives in this class discussion, say, all these things. But in reality, I think that's really destructive and can silence a lot of people and can maintain oppressive attitudes and actions, and maybe even encourage it if it's not addressed properly. And so I think it is something to discuss. But I do think there is when you're trying to be an anti-biased, teacher, you're trying to speak to those situations and cultivate anti-bias ideas and actions. And so I think you have to be very intentional. And so for that, I say question, because I'm thinking about me and like the things that I'm going to do and how it's going to be tricky and hard, and how it can be so easy to fall into that. But I 100% agree, 100% disagree with the teacher who did it, and the fact that he was blind to it. But I agree with Tom and his actions where he addressed it head on, and then healing occurred because of it.
Yeah. Love that. I would say the same thing. Agree with Tom's actions and disagree with the other teacher's actions. Probably for the same reasons, mostly. I think that is something we really need to focus on in our schools, is sort of stop trying to avoid topics that make us uncomfortable when it's actually a huge issue going on. And I think if we do it in a healthy way, like Tom did, and just not letting people like offend other people, and like just healing, I think there's a lot of that we need to incorporate and address in our schools, and I think that Tom did a really good job of that, and I'm glad he shared that in the book.
Yeah. All right.
Yes.
Did you choose that one, or is it?
Do I get to choose?
Yes. I lost track. I'm getting so
I know.
enveloped in the conversation. Okay, it is your choice.
Yeah. I would like assessments and grading for 200.
Okay. All right. So to describe this, Tom has implemented a no due date policy. This means for his students that they can take the time that they need to complete assignments. And so it allows some flexible time things, so that can be really helpful for, many people. But it also is a little controversial, considering it affects grading, and it affects kind of the systematic updating of learning and assessment. So what say you?
Ooh, I guess I would have to say question, because I think it's a good idea, but I also I think you said like some students will benefit from it, and some students are gonna have a harder time like remembering that they need to get an assignment done, and parents might email more and get angry, and so I think if there's a way in which we could do this sort of thing, but like have boundaries, because I know some online classes will have like a weekly thing where every Friday everything needs to be turned in. And I do like that. I think that would be a good idea. But like no due dates like at all is kind of interesting. I guess I wouldn't really know for sure how I feel about that until I put it into action.
Right. Can I respond?
Yes, ma'am.
I also question this. Here's why. I think there are enormous benefits. I think for students who are high stress. Students, I think about me and who I was as a student, and I was such a perfectionist, and I gave everything that I had into everything that I did, and it was really destructive to have so many due dates and so many and it was really difficult for me to actually learn, because I was overwhelmed with busy work due dates. And so I think if you think broadly about stuff, and you change a lot of your things to assessments that occur formatively, that occur in the class time, that occur, you know what I mean, those kinds of things, then, you can probably implement this pretty easily. I think this is really excellent for students who maybe need some more flexible time. But also you're kind of sacrificing the goal setting. So it encourages that idea of like, you have to make your own due dates and you have to make yourself accountable. And I think that does, definitely help that. But I think it needs to be an intentional thing, and it would be a lot of conversations. But I think the amount of grace that it allows will also take a lot of stress away from people who are either naturally high stressed or naturally have anxiety, or who strive to do their best and just don't feel like they have enough time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it does allow for that. So I have some major questions about it, and it is
Yeah.
um, definitely something to think about, something I've been thinking about a lot ever since I read about it.
Mm. Yeah.
Maybe I think I would maybe implement some of those things, like flexible dates, or
Mm.
grace periods, as well as whatever, those things. But also, I think deadlines do help people stay accountable. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I I got a lot of questions about that.
Yeah. Me too.
All right, it is my turn to choose.
Yes.
I am choosing teaching student/teacher relationships for 400.
Okay. Here we have energy drink boy. This was the situation in the book where this very oh yeah, so there was this boy who um, was having an energy drink in class, and the teacher, Tom, he decided to take away the energy drink because you shouldn't have energy drinks in class. I think that was a rule he stated, maybe. You're not supposed to have energy drinks in class. Usually, most schools only allow water. But then this student got very upset, and was just very angry about it. And then, wasn't it after class, I think, Tom brought him out in the hallway, or maybe it was later in the day or the week, and had a chat with him, and he realized that he did wrong. Tom did wrong, and he could reflect on that, and then he was able to apologize to Energy Drink Boy and and take accountability for his actions, and check in with him and just see how the student was feeling and why he reacted in such a big negative way. And I think, yeah, they were able to like talk it out and heal. And yeah, so what is your opinion on this situation?
In terms of Tom's actions, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
It's rocky at the beginning, right? It's rocky. He says the wrong thing. He calls him out in front of the whole class.
Mm-hmm.
It's super destructive, and not good. And then he reacts really negatively because he was called out in front of the class. Of course he would.
Yeah.
And then it's really inflammatory. And then he sort of like starts this monologue, right? And then he's got to teach him a lesson and brings him out into the hallway, and it's like
Oh, yep.
stating all this stuff about whatever. And then he realizes what he's saying.
Mm.
And I think, again, what he did was damage that student's dignity,
Yeah.
stating that in front of the class. It seriously, everything goes back to student dignity for me, and he damaged it. 100% damaged it for the sake of his rules, for the sake of his thing. And of course, he should have approached it in a different way. I mean, if that's the rule, I mean, yeah, you can talk to the student, just say, hey, yeah, next time, just don't bring an energy drink to class.
Yeah.
Even after the class is done, like when you talk to him later, right? But I think that whole, and then he catches himself, right, saying the wrong thing. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
from there, he turns it around. And he is able to salvage that relationship. And then he listens to the boy's perspective about what's going on and why he was acting the way he was acting. And then he gets to learn about the student in a really in a respectful way. Because
Yeah.
you don't learn about students by the product of their behavior. You learn about students by understanding who they are, right? The function of their behavior. And that takes time, and that takes effort, and that takes conversations. And so he realizes what he's doing, and then he like jars and he like goes like right back, like switches gears. And but I agree. You recognize that you did something wrong, you apologize for it.
Yeah. I would say I have to agree as well. I don't know where my card went. Right there. I agree as well. I forgot about the part where he like said it in front of the whole class, and I just remember every time that I would get called out in front of the class, like, oh, my just whole stomach would just sink, and I'd be like, oh my gosh. So like I definitely understand where the kid was coming from when he like reacted negatively and was angry. And I think, yeah, at first it was rocky, and but I think just that he could realize, the teacher, that he could realize what he was doing wrong, and he was not saying the right things to this student, and the way that he was just able to flip it around. And I think that's one of the most important things, is being able to listen to the students and listen to their side of the story, and just listen to your students, so
Right. Yeah. All right. Is it my turn now? I think so.
yeah.
All right. I'm going to choose professionalism in teaching for 100.
Woo. Participating. Hold on.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, wasn't it my turn?
Yes, it was your turn.
I'm sad now.
Sorry. I will escape. You choose.
Escape. Okay, I would like to choose professionalism in teaching for 100. Perfect.
Okay. This is participating in teacher unions. This is just referring to all of the things that he talks about in terms of engaging in teaching unions personally, and the experiences he's had with other people also being in teacher unions, and how that kind of reflects on his experience. So that's sort of like, what are your thoughts on teacher unions? What are your thoughts on in general, and then how Tom talked about them?
I would say agree. I agree that it is important to participate in the teacher unions and kind of stay in the loop of what's going on, and just like, yeah, because in the book, I think Tom talked about like how they're good and can be beneficial, and like I know we had a like, now I can't think of the word. There was a webinar, and some people came to talk with us, came to speak about like teacher unions and organizations and all that kind of stuff. And I think that it's really important to get involved, especially like in the first year of being a teacher, and just being able to fight for what other teachers are trying to make happen, and like support other teachers and support other schools in what they're going through. And then hopefully they'll come support you too if there's ever an issue on that side. And yeah, so I would say I agree. What about you?
I also agree. I think participating in teacher unions is a community building thing. It puts like-minded people together. It also gives you a way to make real change happen. with
Oh yeah.
that sort of thing. And I think you can spend a lot of time advocating and never have the means to actually change anything. And so I think
Mm.
being in a group that is focused on that is a key part, especially when you're a teacher focusing on advocating not only for yourself and other teachers, but also for students.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. All right.
Your
My
turn.
turn. I'm going to do assessments and grading for 100. Oh, okay.
Beep, beep. The wonderful D's. Assessments that Google cannot do. Oh no. Would you mind explaining this one?
Of course. This is referring to Tom's approach where he starts making assessments that as the rise of technology occurred, it got really easy for students to complete specific types of assignments because they could just Google the answers. And so he started having to make assignments that Google could not do, but that could also, like the information that Google could provide, could be an excellent tool for their learning. And so he crafts these experiences, and then he also sort of flows right into the idea of these assessments where they're flexible, they are student sort of voiced, and they aren't any sort of like paper assignments. He like gets rid of, like, he doesn't write a paper and it's an English class, right? And so he asks for something else, and from there springs up these things, right? And so the D work is like the threshold for even attempting the assignment was already so high that it was like, you already did it, you already did the learning, and
Mm.
that's important. So he calls it the wonderful D's, right? Because he's got these groups of students
Okay.
who had like achieved that threshold, even though maybe they hadn't done it as gracefully or as others. And so in terms of assessment, he crafted this thing that would be encouraging of like real um, thoughts and demonstration of knowledge.
Yeah.
So that is what that is. I think I'm supposed to answer right first. I
Yeah.
100% agree with that. I think flexible assessment is 100% the way to go. It is accommodating. It gives students an opportunity to demonstrate their knowledge in a way that they want to. And it
Mm-hmm.
also, like, thinking about what technology cannot provide for someone, kind of allows technology to be a tool and an engaging factor, right? Research element.
Yeah.
But you have to reach a threshold level of understanding in order to even complete the assignment, right? And so that's really important. And I really enjoyed that approach, and I 100% agree with it and its benefits.
Heck yeah. I would say I have to agree as well. The only thing that I would say could possibly be a downside is just having to like, well, I guess you wouldn't have to make the assignment, but because you can like Google answers to assessments and to tests, but so yeah, I was just gonna say like the teacher would have to put in more effort almost, it seems, rather than just taking a quiz from somewhere else, like a textbook, and just using those questions. They would have to put in more time to creating these assessments, which is also a good thing for the teacher because then they're reflecting on how much the students should know. And yeah, I think I totally agree with the wonderful D's. All right.
All right. I think it is your turn to choose. We are a slim pickings here. We're towards the end.
I would like anti-bias teaching for 200.
All right. Okay, this is suspension for stupid rules. This is about a kid, a student at his school who was wearing a hat, and I think he said that he was really profound at swearing. And this student was, told, you are doing the wrong thing. And he was like, well, that's a stupid rule. And it is a stupid rule. But in order for the sake of following the rules, he was suspended. So, what are your thoughts on that sort of situation and the actions involved in that?
Meh, 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 meh. Disagree. I think that is, it sucks. I feel like there was a hard decision to make there, and I mean, it's so hard as a teacher to kind of decide between like what's right and what does the administration have in place, and like how, like which one is more important. So I guess I would disagree with the suspension for that student, but I don't know. What do you think?
I 100% disagree. We have students in school so they can be taught. They need to be in school.
Yeah.
The amount of times that students are suspended for rules that are broken, um, suspension is really difficult for me as a person to even wrap my head around, because all it does is push them further away from the learning and the communities that they need. And you're not upholding your job as an education, like an educational adult at that point. And if it's for something like wearing a hat, again, that's just disproportionate punishment. But the only person you're punishing is the school because you've lost a student. And so, and I think that happens way too much with students with disabilities. Something will happen, it will be misunderstood. Instead of assessing the function of behavior, it will count against them and they will be suspended.
Yeah.
For something that wasn't even an expectation. Or maybe it was, but it wasn't clearly explained or enforced. I think there are other factors involved, but I think having a rule that is really arbitrary to merit a suspension is not it. I have a really hard time with suspension anyway.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you're serving the student who is learning. No one is learning.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
I've always wondered about that. Even when I was a student, I'd be like, what's the point? Like, they do something bad, so you send them home to lay in bed and play video games? Like, I don't get it.
I don't get it either.
Oh, okay. Your choice.
All right. I am going to do student/teacher relationship. Okay.
Uh-oh. So this was yikes, when Tom had a situation where two other teachers were romantically interested in students, which we all know is a big no-no. Yikes. Yeah, so how did you feel about that?
Okay. I'm going to say question. Here is why. In both situations, both teachers came to Tom, right, for advice.
Mm-hmm.
The male, one was a female. Both of them were in opposite, like, teaching. One of them was teaching at a boarding school, and one of them was teaching at a normal public school. But both of them were feeling lonely. Both of them were feeling a little isolated. And they had a student that they had an excellent connection with who shared their fervor for their subject area and also happened to be a wonderful human being. And they began to feel romantically attached to a student. And in both situations, they both said, I'm feeling this way. What do I do? Right. And Tom told both of them, run away. They're kids, run away. Again, it's not about their feelings. It's about their safety. And you being romantically interested in them is an abuse of power. But my thing is, and this is just something that I'm confused on, I guess maybe, is should that be reported? Like, granted, like nothing was like there was no action taken, right? But it's not about actions. It's about like the task of like, being in that relationship and having it sort of escalate. Like that line there, has that already been crossed? And at that point, should you be reporting it? And so that's really hard. So I question that. I totally 100% agree with what he had said to them and how he canceled them, right? And obviously what they were doing was completely wrong and is not at all the way to go. It's completely against your professional obligations. But should he have reported them? I don't know. That's why I question it. What are your thoughts?
I would have to say I question too. Just, yeah, for the same reasons pretty much. Oh goodness, I can't even imagine like being in Tom's situation where he's stuck between like reporting them or like just leaving it and whatever happens. But honestly, yeah, I guess I don't really know whether I would make a choice. Like, oh my goodness. But yes, I agree how Tom handled it with like counseling them and like letting them like that's not okay, especially if they're underage. And yeah, I would say question for sure.
It's a hard one.
Yeah.
Hard thing. Obviously it's wrong, right? What they were doing was wrong. But like, how do you adjust that? Difficult.
Yeah.
All right, your turn.
Anti-bias teaching for 400.
Okay, this is referring to the situation where a colleague of Tom's, a fellow teacher, they were talking about a topic in class, and a student asked him about his home life, to which he honestly replied that he was living with a man and that he was gay. And it set off the community and the students, and it really was a really negative situation for that teacher. And Tom he responded in a way of support for his colleague, respect for his privacy and support for his actions, and advocated for him. And then he got in a really sticky situation with administration, and then they apologized to him because they realized they had done the wrong thing. So that is a situation. Megan, agree. Okay, agree with what?
I 100% would agree that Tom did the right thing and the administration did the right thing later on. I think that we should always try to advocate for our fellow colleagues and other teachers, and especially when it comes to their personal life, because I think there's like a rule or like some sort of boundary where you're not supposed to share like this much of your personal life. But I think a lot of teachers that are straight, like they talk about like, oh yeah, like my husband or my wife, But then since this teacher told his class that he lives with a man, then like I think a lot of the parents and everyone freaked out, and there was just a lot of negativity involved. But I totally agree with how Tom advocated for his colleague and went to the administration, and then they later like realized that they messed up and they apologized. I love that. That's great. So yeah, I totally agree with how Tom handled the situation.
Yeah, I agree too. Um, I don't think it's unprofessional for a person to be gay,
Mm-hmm.
and to
Yeah.
be attacked for it is is atrocious. So I
Mm-hmm.
think stand up for your colleagues for what they're going through, especially when it's something that has no effect on their teaching. Um,
Yeah.
you have to advocate for that. So 100% agree with Tom's
Oh
actions.
yeah.
Disagree with the administration's actions and the actions of the community and the misconceptions that are perpetuated there. Agree with Tom's actions for sure.
Heck yeah.
All right.
All right. Your turn.
My turn. I'm going to do anti-bias teaching. Okay, for 400.
Ooh. Is this kind of like a broad topic, like the whole
It's broad. I think what I was trying to get
sections where he
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to get at is his approach to anti-racist teaching, meaning that it is an endless
reading?
journey and you will never
Oh
get
yeah.
to the next level. Like you will never like level up and become like a master. It's a constant thing that you have to be working through.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I was referring to. And I know, sorry, it's just didn't make sense there.
Got it.
But
What do you feel about that?
I agree. I don't think you'll never be able to get to the end of the tunnel. And if you feel like you are, you're doing it wrong. The
Yeah.
fact that he talks about anti-racist teaching that way, that you will never reach that threshold, right, is 100% correct. It's a constant active decision and a choice, and something you have to actively keep learning about and actively keep talking about in order for it to be something, right? I mean, just even think about how much language changes, and how it can be the right thing to say 20 years ago and it's not the correct thing to say now. You have to be
Yeah.
constantly learning and thinking. So I think to be an anti-bias teacher and especially an anti-racist teacher, you have to be listening and learning, and you have to be growing, and you have to be
Yes.
really trying. It doesn't just fall into your lap. You don't just accomplish that skill, right? And I would
Yeah.
say if you're constantly feeling like you're not doing it right, it means you're doing it right because you're thinking and analyzing yourself and self-reflecting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Yeah. I would say I have to agree as well. I think just like, yeah, it's going to be a constant journey. And I totally agree with how Tom says that and how he handles a lot of situations and how he reflects on them and how he tries to educate himself. I think that's all just going to be continuing forever and it's never going to end. And I totally agree with Tom's perspective on that. Heck yeah.
All right. Oh, we are near the end. Okay. You chose that one, right?
That one.
Okay, I'm going to choose. Oh, wait. Is it your turn?
Oh, yeah. So, 300 assessments and grading.
Okay. So this is referring to the idea of flexible assessment, which means students choose how they want to demonstrate their knowledge in a way that works for them. This sort of feeds into the wonderful D's idea, but this is like simply the assessment part where students get to choose. How do you feel about that?
I would say I agree because this way the students can show what they've learned in their form of assessment. So if they want to create a song or if they'd rather just write a paper, like as long as there's one topic or one question that we're trying to get the students to answer so that we can figure out if they learned, like, I think that's totally fine, and I think students will be more passionate usually too if they get to choose how they're going to do the assignment, because I know a lot of students will get really excited if they can write a poem or write a song or perform for their assessment, and I would totally be down for that too. So I would say I totally agree with this, and I think it's a great idea. What do you have?
I completely agree with what you said. Um,
Yeah.
and to further that, it's flexible assessment is a core concept in the idea of universal design, which is making education accessible to all people. And flexible assessments allows for students to come up with the thing that will help demonstrate their knowledge that is, again, it won't be standardized, but it will be an indication of what they've learned. It will assess them and it will evaluate their knowledge. And again, it just makes it an opportunity that they can craft for themselves, that they can feel passionate about, and that they can feel good about. And if they're not a good test taker, they don't need to take the test. They are able to demonstrate their knowledge in a way that works for them. This is extremely important when you talk about students with disabilities, and flexible assessment is a huge deal. And universal design as a whole educational construct, I tend to ascribe to. You can't really go wrong with that. And flexible assessment is a huge part of that. And I think inviting students to have a choice in their assessment is a big deal. So I agree. 100%.
Heck yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. Turn.
Is it my turn?
Yep.
Okay.
Ooh. Assessing according to standards and its effect on teaching. Dun dun dun. So, tell us how you feel about this. Like, testing based on what the standards say, it kind of relates to a lot of the other questions and topics in the book that Tom writes about, and just like how, okay, yes. So like, do you agree with this or disagree with like following the standards for assessments, or tell us what you think?
I disagree with using standards as the only thing that you teach for assessment. I think that creates irrelevant educational experiences for students. I think it can harbor and lead to overwhelming. I think it can also detract from the actual learning of the subject. I think once that part of educational history occurred where you had to set standards, and in order to get funding, in order to be the school that gets the thing, in order to be supported by the government, as soon as that thing happened and standards became a thing that you had to, be ascribed to and be following, I think that was really harmful to holistic learning. I think we stopped teaching the whole person and started just checking boxes. And so I don't think assessment or teaching only according to the standards is good or appropriate or at all helpful for the students. But I understand the need for standards. I don't think it should be the reason you assess people.
Yes. I would disagree with that with this statement, but your statement I would agree with. Yeah, I would say that the standards have some sort of like idea of what we should be teaching our students and how they should be assessed, but I don't think that like staying attached with them is good for our students. And I think, yeah, it will lead to overwhelming our students, and that's going to worsen it for them too, because then they will be stressed and overwhelmed and they won't be able to learn. And it's like, what's the point then? And I think, yeah, if we can relate it to our actual everyday lives instead of just the standards too, or somehow intertwining them, it's going to benefit our students a lot more.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that.
Heck yeah. Ooh, which one?
Or is this your choice?
Yes.
Okay. This is what this
Oh boy.
teacher to teacher relationships, right? You gotta do it. You gotta, work with your colleagues, and it can be really ugly, right? He has this whole like teacher A responds to teacher C this way, and teacher this and teacher that, and and like they all have this like whole ecosystem, and there's a balance, and everyone hates that person, but it likes that person, and da 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 da, and that culture, right? How do you feel about teacher to teacher relationships?
Question. It depends. I would say my favorite part in this book was when he talked about like the teacher's lounge, or when they would all hang out in the somewhere, I think it was the teacher's lounge. And it just was crazy how all of these teachers were like acting. It seemed like the lunch class, or the lunch room classroom. But like for students, like it was just crazy to like hear that actually goes on. And I think that people just need to respect each other and respect each other's work, and also just be nice to each other, but not, yeah, oh my goodness. What did you think?
I have a question. Here's why. It is so important to have teacher relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
It takes you off of your island. It can invigorate you. It allows you to have a community, and to bounce ideas off of, and also to sharpen you as a professional. I think it's 100%, it. However, I think it also, there's something to be said about talking to someone who gets it.
Yeah.
Right? They get it.
Yeah.
They get the teacher thing. They are a teacher. And you don't have to explain it to someone who isn't a teacher. They know. And I think that's really important, to not feel alone. But at the same time, we are human beings, and we are all subject to, being a gossiper, or being, that can all happen as well. And it can get really ugly. And I think the answer to that is, it's not about you. It is about the students. It's about your students. It's not about you. And so I think in terms of that, you really have to discern, and you have to set aside things. But absolutely pursue teacher relationships that feed you as a professional. But when things are ugly, you all need to understand that there is no place for that. It is, of course it will happen, but it is not about us. It's about students, right?
Oh yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Well,
did it.
We did it! Yay! And we both won! Yay!
Hey, I'm so surprised.
That was really interesting to kind of go through like the questions and have to like choose one.
Yeah.
Like, that was really interesting for me as I am processing this. But
yeah.
To kind of close out our time, do you want to just say one thing that you're gonna put in your toolbox and keep from this this book as a whole?
I think I'm gonna put a lot of things from this book into my toolbox as a teacher. And I think one of the most important things that I'm going to take with me from this book is that oh man, there's so many things. We set ourselves like to such a high standard as teachers, and I think Tom talks about it a lot in this book, where he mentions how he kind of viewed himself as, I'm the teacher, so I can say whatever and I can control like these kids, and like, so I think that just being able to relate to my students in the future, and oh, I just totally blanked. Oh no, what was I saying?
You're talking about standards and relating to students.
How does that happen? Oh no. Okay, you can go.
That's all right. You can write it in a little summary, right? At the end,
Yeah.
in our little summary of it, you can write it there for sure. I think my main takeaway is we are working with human beings. Human beings. They might be younger than you, but they are human beings. They are complex people. They have experiences. We need to speak into those. It's a human thing. And I think, when he talks about that at the beginning of the book, he sets that out right away. Teaching is made of humans. So you have to talk about human issues. And so that's it. I think that's the heartbeat. And I think if you keep centered on that and you allow grace and you teach to issues that are human issues, broad scale human issues, you will be a relevant teacher. And you will be the teacher that people want to be around. And you will be the teacher who makes that subject come alive for a person because you are maintaining their dignity. So that's my biggest takeaway, I think, for sure.
Yes, I would have to agree.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this and our little game show. And I hope you enjoyed this book as much as I did.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Megan. And that's a wrap.
Yay. Bye-bye.
Bye.